This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for listening and tuning in to this episode of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Because I want to start with saying ho, 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 but the tenor and the tone of this podcast will be a little bit different because of the fact the Lions are basically mathematically eliminated. I'm sitting here talking to you, kind of just hoping the season ends. Like, there's 7% chance they get to the postseason. They played an SOL game against the Steelers, and I knew it. I want to know when you sensed it. I knew that game was going to be a grind when you're up 10-3 and they get a fluky touchdown, and you're like, what the hell? Gainwell, I think, gets the 45-yard touchdown on Alex Anzalone, and you're like, what? He caught the ball, picked it up, and marched into the end zone. I was like, okay, this has the feel of one of those games that we've all seen. We've all sat there and been like, you're not beating the Steelers 52-0. You're not beating them like a drum. And it was close. And again, the officials sitting there where they're like taking 5 minutes at the end, giving everybody a heart attack. And then in the end, they're like, incorrectly, Goff scored a touchdown, but unfortunately, everybody go home crying because there's a penalty. It's like, you cannot announce it like that to these people. It was tough. It was, I thought, embarrassing. You were clearly the better team. But unfortunately, when you have young offensive linemen, they make a lot of mistakes. When your defensive line doesn't step up, that is healthy. And Aaron Rodgers picked you apart to that degree, and your run defense is that porous. That's the recipe for a loss. The team should lose out, in my opinion. Get the fourth place, finish in last place in the division, end up playing the worst of the AFC South, play the Titans, play the Jets, play bad teams, and see if you can pick yourself up next year, because this year this team isn't good enough. And what is shocking, and I'm curious your sense of it, the defense fell apart. The scheme's not good enough, and the players are not buying in anymore. Whatever's happened, it's not talent. That when you give up over 200 yards, that's effort and execution, and that means you're not paying attention to the degree in which you need to win football games. It's not SOL, but it's a clear, eye-opening statement regarding the talent, the front office, and the coaching. A complete collapse against the Steelers. How did you take that game in? I stood there watching it at Ford Field going, well, I've seen this one before. And I tweeted it at Detroit Podcast. Well, I feel like I've watched this game 1,000 times. And it went the way where the Lions were a bad team, and they lost a game that they shouldn't have.
You said a lot there. There's a lot there for me to chew on and to kind of address with you here. So first off, you asked me, when did I realize that this game was going to be a slugfest and was going to be one of those grinded out, slow games, one of those things where this offense is going to show up in spurts. It was probably towards the end of the first quarter. Your first drive, it's 3 and out, and you lose a yard. Your next one is you turn the ball over on downs, you get into the red zone, and you don't take the field goal, which I didn't really have a problem with. But you try to come up with some weird fourth down play, and you just don't execute. And it was at that point I was like, man, this is going to be one of those games. Like, you can't take anything for granted against these Steelers. And it was kind of at that moment where I was like, all right, it's time for us to strap in, and hopefully the defense can hold. Hopefully the defense can make some plays and allow the offense to get back on its feet and get rolling. If this offense can get a little bit of momentum, maybe it can do some stuff. And I felt like for the most part, the defense did as good of a job as the defense was going to do. I'm not writing home. I'm not writing any soliloquies about how awesome this defense was, but I felt like the defense, which is not the strength of this team, gave you a puncher's chance. I felt like the offense was the bigger issue in this game. Specifically coming out at half, you couldn't get going again. You had 15 rushing yards. What? This is a team that is supposed to have 2 premier running backs. Yep. This is a team that is supposed to be built around running the football to set up the pass. It's a team that's supposed to be built around play action. And for some reason, it feels as though this team has kind of gotten out of its way. You said the better team won this game, or the better team lost this game. Did they? Did they? Because I feel like the Steelers are probably the better team. I feel like the Steelers are probably the deeper team. I feel like the Steelers, top to bottom, have it more in line with where they should be and where they need to be than the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are playing second and third string and fourth string guards and centers. Pittsburgh was playing a fourth and fifth string tackle, and they were doing the job against your defense, against a guy who gets paid a lot of money in Aiden Hutchinson, a guy who had a little bit of trouble getting home again, against a guy like Ali McNeil, who's been on the side of a milk carton and has received that flyer that we used to get in the 90s. Missing. Call 1-800 missing person. These guys on your defense, those two specifically, to me, don't feel like they were doing the job. It felt like you had a guy like Alex Anzalone who ended up getting beat for that touchdown that you talked about. You put him in a bad spot. Like that's not on Anzalone. There's only so much he can do. He did everything he could do on that play. One, it was incredibly strange the way it all panned out. It was an underthrown ball that Gainwell had to come back on, and somehow he caught it with his fingertips to then get up and run into the end zone. Absolutely bonkers. All of that was just absolutely crazy to watch. But I don't know why you've got him out there on an island like that. Like, that ball's on Kelvin Shepherd. You got to be better, bro. Like, you got to do something better. I don't know if there's a bit of a learning curve. I'm not sure what's going on there. But again, I feel like that defense gave the offense enough of a chance to get going. I just felt like the offense never got going. It never got a rhythm. I felt like at certain points you were forcing the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I felt like you kept trying to go back to Jahmyr Gibbs, hoping he could break one off for you, and it's just not there. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if it's just the offensive line is that bad. I don't know if it's the layering of the play calling, which we talked about last week. I don't know if it's the actual play calls are bad. What I do know is that Dan Campbell next year cannot be your offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
If Dan Campbell is your OC, we've got a lot of other problems to discuss. We've got a whole lot more that we've got to unpack. I think when you look at this team, and I think the biggest takeaway I had from this game, because like I said, I don't think the defense did anything by any great shakes. I don't think defense was anything to write home about, but I think the defense gave you a chance. I think the offense, again, stalled out and sputtered and was basically a 1989 Chevette that just, for some reason, the fuel pump's failing on it, and it just it'll start and it'll run for about 4 blocks, then it conks out, and then it'll start and it'll run for about 6 blocks, then it conks out. That's what I feel like this offense looks like right now. It is incredibly frustrating. But the big thing I took away from this, and I think the one thing that me and you probably need to drill down on a little bit more, what's the identity of this team? This team was supposed to be built on grit, toughness. It was supposed to be the team that was supposed to punch you in the face. They were supposed to be able to take a blow, get back up, drag you into the deep end of the water, and basically outlast you in the deep end. I haven't seen that all year, man. I don't know who this team is. This team right now, and this team all season, has not been the team that we've had the prior 2 seasons.
Right.
I'm curious if the coaching staff, I'm curious if some of the players, if not all of the players, I feel like Brad Holmes, because he's got receipts, he'll tell you about them. I feel like some of these guys have started reading their own press clippings, and the mentality, the attitude, the bottom line on what this team, yes, the grit, the bottom line of what this team is built on, the foundation has slowly eroded over this season. And maybe it wasn't there when the season started, and maybe now we're just really starting to see it. But this does not feel like a tough team. This does not feel like a team that is incredibly driven. This does not feel like a team that is willing to do what it takes to win at any cost. This feels like a team that has gotten fat, that has gotten sassy, and it feels like a team that is now incredibly soft. I'm wondering if you've seen the same thing, because it's been one of those things where I've kind of taken a couple steps back, and over the last 3 weeks, I really just kind of watched, and I'm like, well, what do you feel about this team? What are you sensing from this team? And that's what I've sensed. That's what I felt. I feel like this team is soft, like butter soft, like sitting on your kitchen counter in 105-degree temperature. Butter soft, man.
Yeah, well, I look at it differently. Not soft. It's the formula of grit is not there. It's not as gritty because it's not as talented. And here's the thing: you can't use excuses in regards to injuries, but you don't have Terry Arnold, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. That changes your defense. And in the end, you have an Ali McNeil coming off of an injury, and he's not the same guy. It's not the same dude. And DJ Reader is older and not as good. And Tyleik Williams is young and inexperienced, not as good. Your offensive line is consisting of a first-round pick, a center that's playing for the first time as a starter, and a left guard coming back from injury who's trying to help, but also is a fifth rounder. So you're not as talented, which makes it look like not as gritty. You're just not as good. It's not a good team. It's an average team. It's an 8-7 team. And the recipe, this is how you get there. First of all, the loss, just to give the facts, gift wraps the Bears the playoff spot. You're not going to win the division, and now you basically have a 7% chance. You have to win the next two, which is probably never going to be likely, and then you need the Packers to lose to the Ravens and Vikings, which is very unlikely as well. So, and I think half the fan base doesn't care if they get to the postseason because they're about to witness the Seahawks and the Rams and or the Eagles or Bears or Packers. You're gonna watch a curb stomping. You're gonna watch the same game. So you're not as talented. That's on Brad Holmes. It's a football team that did not come together. The identity is too many changes, just too many moving parts to create a winning puzzle. It's basically like, all the concerns that everybody had. 2 new coordinators, they're well in over their head, as they should be. They don't have experience. Experience is the thing. Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers have so much experience that they worked you. Sean McVay, so much experience that they worked Calvin Shepard. You weren't able to get stuff done. And when you see Aaron Rodgers just creating plays on the fly and you can't stop it, it's just a bad.
It was like he was drawn in the sand.
Yeah,
he was playing backyard football.
And
you go to the stop sign and hang a right. You go
right
down past Mrs. Archer's house, and I'll hit you with the deep post. Like, that's what it felt like, man.
And the Lions played 75% or more zone this game. It didn't work out effectively. Look, DJ Reed and Amik Robertson are not a tandem that is considered to be elite together.
Dude, can we talk about DJ Reed real quick? I'm glad you brought him.
Yeah, for sure.
That signing.
It's bad.
Dude, I guess this goes back to maybe a conversation that we're going to have about Brad Holmes, and I'd like to save that for maybe the end of the season. But
yes.
Goodness, man. If you could have swung and missed more in one offseason.
Oh.
I don't know how you get out of this contract. I don't know what you do with this guy. He's essentially a pylon out there.
Just before we started, I said, man, all we're doing is begging Brad Holmes to be aggressive. But when he signed somebody and gave him $16 million, he gave $11 million to Cam Sutton. The dude can't evaluate cornerbacks in the free agent market. That's pretty bad. He gave it to DJ Reed. You should have gave it to Carlton Davis. You should have just gave it to the guy that was already here. Yeah. So it's bad because in one avenue, we tell Brad Holmes, hey, be aggressive in free agency and trades. And on the other, when he's done it, it hasn't turned out exactly the way in which you wanted. He's had a couple big whiffs. And
can we say
he's bad?
Can we say his evaluation on cornerbacks, his evaluation on the D line, his evaluation on the offensive line, all need to be scrutinized and questioned. Like you said, just not good enough. It's just not good enough.
Not elite. Yep, you're absolutely right. The talent, the replacement of talent was not good enough, and the draft was not good enough. The 23, 24, 25 has at least 6 misses. That's the depth that you need. 6. Hendon Hooker, Broderick Martin, Mekhi Wingo, Giovanni Manu. That's a lot of players that could be helping. You can't have, it's clear, you can't have red shirts. You can't have guys that you draft that don't play and end up not contributing. Mekhi Wingo is a healthy scratch. That's not good enough. Terry Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw are not playing. That's the depth that you need.
Neither one of those guys have made a complete season. I think between the two of them, they should have something like 34 games. I don't even know if combined they have a whole season because they've been injured so damn much.
So you look at it and you say, my goodness. And we'll talk about that here in regards to moving forward in a few minutes. But what was it like for you watching that final sequence? Because it was crazy. As bad as you played, you had a chance. Dan maybe could have ran the ball with a 1 timeout left in 25 seconds. You could have did it and then take 3 shots. But he said, and he's right, he's like, we scored. Like we scored on the touchdown, but they called a flag. The Tesla one, people say it is an OPI. It's debatable. He's being told by the coaches you did the right things, but again, it just feels like anytime the Lions put any opportunity for the refs to get involved, they do. The Amon-Ra one was clear. That was he even knew it. Like
Yep.
he when he spoke to the media, he's like, "Yeah, dude, it's a flag. It's what I did." He had to acknowledge it. But the Tesla one puts you back, and I just wish, man, like why? The way I was thinking it was, oh my goodness. Like if you could blow a call there, like you don't have to get. I know you. The job is to get it right, but it's the Detroit Lions. Don't you want the Lions in the postseason? If you're New York, you're like just we come in from the model of, and I know you do, cuz we watched a lot of playoff hockey, and the idea is kind of swallow the whistle in overtime. Like you don't want the refs to be like, man, making a subjective call,
Yeah, you don't want
but
the refs to decide the game.
you don't want the refs to decide the game. And it's look, you have to acknowledge that it's a passing offense. It's better. You want to put it in Goff and St. Brown's hands, but you got a rookie out there. Maybe in that spot, the argument could be made is maybe don't put the rookie out there. Maybe send Calder Freeman to do that, but do they bite even better? That's what sucks is you don't have another realistic option. Maybe you send Fruxer out there to do the job. Maybe you should have sent Fruxer out there in the slot and have him block in a way, or Zylstra or somebody else. But you put a rookie in that spot. He felt horrible, but he was told. Jared Goff told him right away, don't hang your head on that. You did the right things. So I just looked at it like you're never going to get the benefit of the doubt. And what burns is you're at home. Like if you're ever going to get the benefit of the doubt, you can't get it at Ford Field, and then you have a 5-minute delay after the Amon-Ra one. Everyone's heart's racing. You're like, what's going to happen? Is it a touchdown? First of all, Goff didn't get into the end zone, so everyone sees it that he didn't really cross the plane. But you call it, it ends because of the rule that you have an offensive penalty. The Lions do not get the opportunity. Everyone's told, and it ends like that. It felt like a swift kick to the nuts, but the Lions didn't deserve to win. It wasn't a game in which they were clean enough to win the game. The third quarter was atrocious, but the officials made a call in your crib that ended the game and likely ended your playoff spot. And most people are like, you know what? On a call that's 50-50, maybe it's a home game. Let it go. Do you think the Steelers would have been pissed seeing the replay of Tesla? No. They could have made the argument, but I just feel like
Here's the thing.
maybe just eliminate picks altogether so that you remove the subjective nature of this.
So with the Tesla penalty, right? Watching the NFL season, you've seen that called numerous times, and you've seen that not called numerous times. That is one of those things where it's like, by the letter of the law, it was a penalty. He was about 1.5 yards, 2 yards down the field, and he threw the pick. So by the letter of the law, yeah, it's a penalty. And they focused this year on calling that more regularly. Now, that being said, it's not like it's been called all the time, and you could totally see them not calling that. So I could see that go both ways. I'm not putting that on Tesla. All right. It is what it is. Here's the deal. Facts are the facts. The refs called the penalty there, put you in a tight spot, put you in a bad spot. All right. So now we're backed up. So what do? Amon-Ra St. Brown ran into Ramsey. And I think it's one of those things, if he could have ran into Ramsey and bounced off of him, you probably don't get the flag thrown on that. It was the hands extending and the pushing off, and then it was the flopping by Ramsey that I think drew the flags immediately. And you immediately seen flags come out. Like the moment Amon-Ra St. Brown turned back to go get the ball, you seen 1,001 flags come out. And I think it was more because of the demonstrative nature in which St. Brown ran into him and collided. This is something that I used to get called for all the time when I played hockey. I would go and I'd line somebody up and I'd hit them. And it was one of those things where the arms came up and the hands fully extended. And then next thing you know, I'm getting a roughing call and I'm sitting in the box and I'm pissed. Now, if I would have just ran into them, kept everything tight, shoulders down, wouldn't have been a call. But because I extended the hands and I threw the hands up there and I flexed them, I'm now going to the sin bin. If St. Brown just runs into him and bounces off of him, here's the thing. St. Brown might actually get the defensive pass interference call there, if we're being 100% honest. And they probably move the ball to the 1 yard line, and they get a chance to run it in there. They get they get an untimed down. So I feel like it was what took place there. It was how it all played out. If he would have done something different, probably would have been a different story. But I think more to the point, why are you counting on the refs to bail you out? Why are we talking about the referees? Just be better. This wasn't a good Pittsburgh Steelers team. I think that's the thing that gets lost the most in all of this because of everything that took place at the end and because of the season that the Lions are having. This Pittsburgh Steelers team is not good. Like, they're just not. They've got two very mid to average running backs. They've got DK Metcalf, and when he's not taking swings at fans and stands, he's lost a step. They don't have anything offensively. They've got an 80-year-old man as their quarterback who's too busy putting prune juice up his butthole so he can have an ayahuasca shit. That's the guy who's running the offense, drawing plays in the sand. Defensively, they didn't have their two best players out there. And Goff was pressured immensely. To me, this was a game where the fact that we're talking about the refs and the fact that the refs get brought up in this is more of an indictment on where this Detroit Lions team is. We should not be talking about the referees. We should be talking about how the Detroit Lions let this Pittsburgh Steelers team walk away from Ford Field with a win. It just goes more to the point of honing in and looking at basically the shortcomings of this team. Just looking at how this team has regularly failed over multiple points throughout the season. We're going to look back on this year, and we're going to point to two games, and we're going to say those games were turning points, and those games were things that cost us playoff bids. It's going to be the Philadelphia game, because that was a game you should have won. Philadelphia is not a good team. They're going to somehow get into the playoffs, and they're probably going to make some noise, but they are not a good team. There's something amiss there. And then the Minnesota game. You let Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy come into your house and basically dog walk you. And then there'll be this Steelers game too. Because this right here, I feel like is the nail in the coffin. This is the one where it's like, okay, now everybody is on board with Adam. Everybody's come over here and everybody's like, yeah, you're right. Season's over. It's done. Well, welcome, guys. I've been keeping the seat warm for you. Pull up a chair. Let's have a conversation about all of the shortcomings of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and what's going on here. Because the fact that we have to talk about the referees being the cause of this team losing this game, I think is short-sighted and I think is wrong. It's not their fault. Test loss penalty, coin flip. You can call it either way. All right. So you want to get mad about it? Fine. You don't want to get mad about it? Fine. I don't care. St. Brown's, legit penalty. He admits it. He could have done something different and it might not have been a penalty, but it is what it is. And the fact that you had to get yourself into that position to try to win that game, I think says all that you need to say about this team this season. No doubt. And it's unfortunate, man. It is frustrating as a Lions fan. This is going to sound so bad. I'm so happy that this season is finally over.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this team taking my attention. I'm tired of this team frustrating me on Sundays. I'm tired of this team frustrating me on Thursdays. I'm just tired of this team. I'm tired of the message that comes from the coaching staff. I'm tired of hearing the players talk and not take accountability. I'm just tired. I don't like this team.
Right.
Which is so weird because this is the team that we've all gravitated towards. This is the team that the city has basically embraced and said, this is the reflection of us. Well, here's the deal. I hate us. I hate us, and I'm happy it's over.
Yeah, this 2025 team will go down as a sentinel moment in the history of the organization because the front office has to change, the coaching staff has to change, some adjustments have to be made, and this is a regression. This is a setback. And
can we say this? Look, I think this season is going to be important for a lot of reasons. But I think this season highlights a lot of issues that have gone on with this team.
Now we all see it.
It's going to I think it's going to force Brad Holmes. If Brad Holmes has any chops and has any self-awareness, it's going to force him to go back into the bunker and reevaluate a lot of what he does. It's going to force him to reevaluate how he wants to put his team together. It's going to force him to reevaluate how he evaluates offensive and defensive linemen. It's going to force him to reevaluate safeties. Maybe this is what pushes him over the edge and makes him go out there and sign a big name free agent. Maybe this is the cold bucket of water that shows him like, hey, championship windows, they can close.
Yes.
They can. You need to go all in when you've got a shot.
Yes.
Instead of saying, no, these things don't exist. I think that is probably the one thing you can take out of this season, though. The silver lining in all of it is it's going to force the front office is going to force the brain trust to go back to the drawing board
Right.
and reevaluate everything about themselves.
Reevaluate everything and reevaluate the fact that you got to hit a lot more in the draft. You got to hit in free agency trades. It's got to be a complete turnaround. And I do think you got to make a coaching change in regards to getting a new offensive coordinator. And heck, if you get a more experienced defensive coordinator, I would be fine with that too. Kevin Shepard listen, you can learn on the job, but this is a Super Bowl window. And I'm starting to think that it's closing. It's just more and more difficult. The Bears are going to make your life a nightmare for the next 2 years. So, cuz you got to sell the audience, I think it's closing. I think that they have a chance. They have a couple more cracks at it. But to get over the hump, I think got harder because you got youth. You got to pay Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, who's got a $23 million escalator as a fifth-year option. So you got to give him a contract. Otherwise, he's going to put you in cap nightmare. So you got to restructure him and get him locked into the fold before the fifth year there. So sell the audience. What do you think has to happen in order for the Detroit Lions to get back to the mountaintop? You're first and foremost, one, they will recognize they made mistakes. Talent wasn't there. They probably have to address the strength and conditioning department to get these guys right, healthy. Healthy teams win, and the Lions haven't been healthy now for 2 years. It's not luck. It's 2 years of inappropriate health and not having the horses needed to sustain the success that you want. And then second of all, I think that the philosophy is the opportunity to realize that, okay, we got to playoff. We got to level 2 from level 1, but to get to level 3 championship, you got to do so much more. And I think it takes a lot of work. So how do you think the Lions get there? And are you losing faith?
I'm not losing faith yet. This offseason is gonna go a long way. I will say this. I think the championship window is closed. That being said, I think you can retool and you can fix this. Now, I don't think you can retool and fix this in one offseason because I think things have degraded so far. Obviously, you need to get a new offensive coordinator. You need to possibly reevaluate your defensive coordinator. I think Kelvin Shepard is weird because I feel like early on, we're like, okay, cool. You can see a lot of really good things. I feel like half the season we talked about how well he did. And then it felt like the other half of the season, he's been depantsed. And you're like, whoa, what is going on? And we all know that essentially the way you make your bones in this business as a DC is doing more with less. And he just hasn't done more with less. He's done less with less. So you're right. Learning on the job is a thing, but what do we got here? Do we actually have the second coming of a defensive coordinator, or do we need to reevaluate that? So coaching staff wise, there's got to be some turnover. There's got to be some adjustments. I think Dan Campbell, from a philosophy standpoint, has to go back to what made him great. The biting kneecaps, the dropping elbows, the dragging into the deep, and basically devouring you. He's got to somehow remanifest that. It needs to be authentic. I think what he's giving you right now is he's giving you authentic Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is never not authentic. And I think players appreciate that. I think we as fans appreciate that. I think it is appreciated to see that, but I need you to find that hunger. I need you to get angry. I need you to get that chip back on that shoulder. And I just don't think we've seen it. You told me something a little while ago. You used to say that Ben Johnson was kind of an asshole. Ben Johnson was constantly yelling at guys, getting in guys' faces, and Dan Campbell would usually play. It was good cop, bad cop, and Dan Campbell for the most part was good cop. I think Dan Campbell's got to kind of go back and be a little bit more of that authoritarian, and he's got to be the bad cop. He's got to be the guy chewing dudes out, ripping into them, and getting in their asses. You don't have a Ben Johnson. I don't think Calvin Shepard strikes the same kind of fear that maybe Ben Johnson used to, especially when the offense was what used to carry this team. So you're going to have to refigure that out. The mentality of the coaching staff has to change and has to adjust. Now, from Brad Holmes' perspective, you're going to have to do some adjustments with some of these contracts. You just don't have the money. You've already highlighted Jahmyr Gibbs is due for an extension and what that's going to do as far as a cap nightmare goes. Jared Goff's going to have to restructure his contract. You are now essentially tied to Jared Goff for probably the next 4 years.
Yep.
Maybe 5, depending on how everything goes. So get comfortable with that. Get comfortable with what you have in Jared Goff, because you're going to have to restructure his contract and push things out to free up some more cap space. I'm assuming you might have to do that with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It is going to be what it's going to be. you may need to look at flipping a couple pieces on that defense, right? A guy like Aleem McNeil. Like I said, he's not been anywhere. I haven't seen Aleem McNeil in I can't tell you how long. I don't know if it's just he's not 100% healthy. He came back maybe a little too soon from the injury. Maybe he bounces back next year. You're going to have a really hard look at that, and you can possibly move on from him, save yourself $20 million, and maybe get some draft capital. And you can go and use that draft capital to readdress both lines. You and I talked about this for the last 14 years, man.
Oh.
You win up front. You win on the defensive line, and you win on the offensive line. Your entire offensive line, minus Penei Sewell, needs to be retooled. I don't know what Tate Rutledge is. I don't know what he's going to be. If you are 100% confident in him and you think he can get the job done, cool. You can keep him, and you got Penei Sewell. You've got 3 other spots that you've got to look at reevaluating, and you've got to look at possibly making some moves and addressing. Defensively, you need to get Aiden Hutchinson a partner. He needs help. He can't do it all by himself. And by no means do I think he's the second coming of a D end. This guy is not Myles Garrett. He is the furthest thing from Myles Garrett. All right. He's a good player. He's not a great player. You're paying him like he's great. You know what would make him greater? Make him look like a better player? Get him some help. Get him a running mate. Get him somebody to go opposite of him. All right. And then you need to address the middle of that defense. Yep. You need to get some big bodies who can sit there and lean on guards and centers and help collapse that pocket. I think your linebacking core is solid. I think you got a lot of good linebackers. You got a lot of good coverage linebackers. The one thing I took out of that Pittsburgh game that was probably most interesting, Jack Sawyer was a guy that I really wanted. Jack Sawyer was a guy that after that Michigan game where he was ready to rip out Wolverine's throats on the field, I was like, go get that guy. I like that guy. You get him in the second round, take his ass. Because that was a guy who could be a stand-up linebacker who could blitz, or that could be a guy that you could put on the edge and you could stand him up, you could put him down, you could do whatever you want to do, and he can get to the quarterback. You need another guy like that for Aiden Hutchinson. Whether it comes in the form of a linebacker or it comes in the form of a D end, you need somebody else who can rush that opposite side. You don't have those guys. Barnes is a really good cover linebacker. Anzalone, it's really his bread and butter. He's a really good coverage linebacker. Jack Campbell, he's a really good Mike, and he's a really good coverage linebacker. Like, all these guys can hang with tight ends. It's great. It's fantastic. None of these guys can really get to the quarterback, though. None of these guys, their bread and butter is not blitzing, not getting the edge and getting around a tackle or getting through something that's congested in the middle and getting to the quarterback. That's not their job. That's not what they do. They're not good at that. So you need to somehow add somebody else who can put pressure on a quarterback. And then secondary, man, I look, you're going to need Rakestraw to come back healthy. You're going to need Arnold to maybe figure it out. We might have to pull the plug on Arnold. He might be cooked. Like, that might be it for him. You know, if you can get out of DJ Reed, I don't know how, but if you can find somebody to take him, great. Kirby Joseph's got an arthritic knee. Sounds like he's got the knee of a 90-year-old man. I don't know if he plays again. Brian Branch is when they signed Kirby Joseph, I was upset because I was like, I feel like you're now going to have to lose Brian Branch. Brian Branch was the guy that I would much prefer to keep. I felt like you signed Joseph because of his interceptions. Fantastic. Go back and look at a lot of those interceptions. They were either thrown right at him or they were deflected in front of him. He caught the ball. There were like 2 out of all of his interceptions where he came streaking across the field and read a play and made that pick. For the most part, he was the right guy, right place, right time, and you rewarded him for it. I thought that was a stupid contract. Brian Branch is the guy that I felt like you needed because he could play both safety positions. He could give you time at corner. He could play the nickel. If you needed him to come up and play linebacker, he could play linebacker. Brian Branch was your utility knife on defense, and he makes a world of difference, and he's a gigantic eraser. You might lose him because you've got Kirby Joseph and his arthritic knee. To me, you've got to figure out a way to flip this defense, man, and you've got to figure out a way to make this offensive line better. Those things in conjunction with adding a new OC and reevaluating your DC and the philosophy changing from Dan Campbell. I know it sounds like a lot. And like I said, I don't think you can get it all done in one offseason. I think it's going to be a 2-year deal where you
Yeah.
got to kind of go back to the drawing board and refigure it all out.
Yeah.
To
Because
get it all right.
every year you got to take out the puzzle and put it back,
Yep.
and you're going to naturally. By the time this airs, we're going to put out a story at Lions on SI, which is 5 guys on the Lions that are not going to be here. DJ Reader, the interior defensive tackle, you're going to shift Tyleek to the role. Amik Robertson is going to be gone.
Real quick. What's been your take on Tyleek?
Yeah,
has he done
he's a
enough
rookie.
to impress you,
Not-
or is it just
no,
kind of
he's
like
a rookie? This is a rookie.
next year he needs to be better?
Needs to be better. It's not as impactful. He's learning the down in, down out responsibilities that you got to have, and he's got to gain more size. He's got to be, in that gym and get in the best shape possible. Better guards were able to handle him more often than not, and he's a rookie. So that's why they used Roy Lopez, was to be more consistent in the opportunity. But that's what you get with a rookie.
Dude, what does that tell you when that was probably your most impactful D tackle? Your most consistent D tackle, Roy Lopez. On a good roster, he's like a 4th or 5th option as a rotational piece.
Yeah.
That was your most impactful guy. That was your most impactful free agent signing. Freaking nuts.
Yeah, and he's a role player in essence.
Yes.
So that's the tough part, looking at it. And you get Alex Anzalone, he's going to have to depart. So you're going to make some changes. You're going to make some. David Montgomery, I think, is not being utilized. You pay him 18 snaps, and you just got to go with Gibbs, and you got to draft.
Dude, I see a world where he gets traded or he gets released.
Yeah, simple as that. And you move forward, and you got to retool this team. And I think the window's closed for 26, and you put it back together, you gel, you get young, and then I think when you add a couple more pieces, a couple more drafts, maybe 2027, you make the push. Next year, you probably can make a run in the playoffs. Maybe you get to the Super Bowl and lose, and you try one more time and see what happens. But yeah, this year was supposed to be a stepping stone. It didn't turn out that way, and good, because in the end, all the warts now are on the table. The Holmes files have finally been released. You and I were saying, open the Holmes files, and everybody's like, let him cook. He's fine. He's got his kitchen. We're not going in his kitchen. Let Brett. We're like, open the Holmes files. There's stuff in there that you don't want to see. And all of you were like, no, it's not. The kitchen is good. Look at Aiden. Look at James. Look at Jameer. But then we go, wait a minute. Jameer's good against crumb bum teams, as he should be. But what about against the Eagles? What about against the Packers in week 1? So I'm very thankful that Doc and Jock are here to get the Holmes files released eventually, because everything gets released. And that's the one thing I'm proud of. And I'm very grateful to do a podcast with you, is that we've always been the type to question, because of the fact that we're still starving regarding the one goal. And you and I have always been in lockstep. There's one goal. It's not to just get to the playoffs and lose. It's not to get to the playoffs and choke away an NFC championship. It's not to get to the Super Bowl and lose. It's to get to the Super Bowl, end the year as the number 1 team. That's been the mission. That's all that you and I have wanted since we started this podcast, is to one day turn on the microphones, put a couple champagne bottles together, clink them together, and be like, how the fuck did the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl? Are we dreaming? Are we still doing this? Listen, we might have to be 80 years old and our nuts hanging to the ground, but eventually, one day, one before we die. But we know if there's 2 guys in this town that can smell dysfunction, it's Adam Strozinski and John the Doc Macaroon. No doubt about it. And thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting us. And that's why you've followed at Detroit Podcast. That's why you follow at Adam R. STRO. That's why you follow at Adam R. STROZ. We are not the lump of coal in your stocking. We are the light that we are the guys in the suits that are going, hey, release those Holmes files. Something's wrong. We smell some things that we're not supposed to be smelling. And Adam has his baby oil put away for the last couple of years, and maybe he can bring it back out in a couple more years. But in the because the times are not the baby oil times are. This is not the era for baby oil. It might make a comeback in this run of our podcast, but not right now. Cause Merry
I missed
Christmas.
the baby oil.
Like I said, you got to put that away for a couple years. I don't know what you're talking about. We're gonna close the baby oil Adam files for the time being, and nobody's gonna ask for them to be released anytime soon. Oh man, Merry Christmas, cuz you are the biggest present in my life in sports broadcasting. I look up to you. You've been big help for me, and the joy of doing a podcast with you is something I do not take lightly. It's very much a great time. Can't wait to hang out with you at some point over this holiday season. Everybody, listen, this is our suggestion. Be safe. Have fun with your Uncle Ned, who's going to tell you that he saw an AI video of Dan Campbell throwing a chair through the wall. just let them entertain the idea that Dan Campbell beat up his players. Whatever you hear that's AI slop, just go, all right, Uncle Ned. Yeah, Dan Campbell fucking beat up his players. Whatever, dude. It's one of those years. Have a good time. Get drunk. Watch the Vikings game drunk. It'll make you feel better. You'll be like, that fucking offensive line sucks, and I told everybody. Have some alcohol. Enjoy it with your family. It's Christmas. This game, we know what the lines are. It's definitive, whatever it may be. We're going to turn our attention little by little to detailed ways to improve this football team, and we'll get after it. And you know that Doc and Jock will stay on the case because the Slappies are strong, and they definitely put up a fight when good things happen. But we'll always be here to just ask some basic questions, to nitpick, to examine how does this football team beat the best in the world. And that's the best thing about podcasting is that we have the platform to do it. And you guys have supported it. Thank you very much. This has been the latest Doc and Jock Christmas episode featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I can't wait to fire up the next one and see what the hell happens. Hell, maybe drag it out one more week. Come on, Ravens, give the Packers a game. Let's see Ben Johnson curb stomp the Lions and put us out of their misery. Let's see what happens. Cause let's talk soon. I can't wait to fire it up next week on the next episode of Doc and Jock. Ho, 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 motherfuckers. Let's talk soon.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.